Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 190. Wait, we had a test yesterday? Recorded on March 17th, 2022 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Let us do so, Tyler. As always, we will start with our news and events. If you don't know, you can head over to Zenatta.com and you can go to Zenatta.com/events, or you can go up to the title where it says news and events and go to Zoho events. And we keep track of all the events that are coming up in the world of Zoho. You can go there and just find everything you're looking for. You can register. It's not just our events, it's everyone's events. So head over to Zenatta.com/events and check out what's coming up soon. We did our webinar this week, Tyler. Zoho Desk. I should say I did 20% of it. You did 80% of it. Nice job on that webinar. And next month on April, we've got Zoho Projects, a full product tutorial coming up as well. Looking forward to that one. And then in May, we're going to do our Zoho Books full product tutorial. That's going to be a lot of fun. So also wanted to point out on our site, people have been asking about this. I'm actually surprised how many people have said they've gone to our website, but they don't click on this resources tab. And we actually have a resource library in here. It's broken down in kind of two ways. One of it is if you just click on the resource library, well, it's going to basically give you everything that you want to know. Every Zoho app is here. And Tyler and I and the whole Zenatta team have taken a chance to rank these. We update these rankings in real time as we think they're better. So we've got, yes, these are applications we think you absolutely, you can't go wrong with. They're great applications from Zoho. Maybe also really good, great applications, but for some companies, they might not work. I mean, Zoho Books is a fantastic application. Zoho Expense is a great application. But, you know, all QuickBooks does is financial software, and they've got a couple little bells and whistles that some companies need. So maybe Zoho Books won't work for you, but for most companies, it will. Zoho Expense, it's great, but then there's a company called Concur. All they do is expenses. So maybe that's something that'll work for you. But in most cases, for a lot of companies, these work great. And then we've got our I almost feel like we should name this to Not Quite Yet. Maybe, because that's kind of how they are, right? Maybe this should just be our Not Quite Yet section. And, you know, these apps, you'll be surprised. Like marketing automation is a whole new release of that is coming out. This could go from the no, not quite yet, all the way up to the yes category quickly. So it's kind of a good way to check those out. And also, if you go ahead and you click into any of these applications, well, we tell you what all of our rankings are and basically why we like them, why we love it. You can go look at all of the content we've put together on it, all of the articles, PDF guides by us and by other people that we've collected, all of the videos we've done. All of this is searchable. So maybe you're in the CRM and you wanted to do, mail. You can check out every video related to mail inside the CRM, and all of that information is there. So you can, it's really, really, really helpful. Also into the resource guide, bundles. People often ask about Zoho's bundles. So we've got the 8 main bundles up here, and you can click on any of these and it'll take you directly to them. So in CRM Plus, you can see what the overall pricing is, what apps are included in that, Zoho One, the rest. You can compare, see which bundle's right for you. So check out the resource library if you haven't had a chance to, and I think it will be helpful to you. And with that, Tyler, let's be a goldfish and get on with the news, shall we?
You must have been waiting to say that.
All righty. What's that?
I said you've been waiting to say that ever since you got that mug, huh?
Well, I've had this mug for a while. I watched Ted Lasso was on 60 Minutes this weekend, or Jason Sudeikis was anyway. It was a good interview. It's a fun show. If you haven't watched it, we're talking about Ted Lasso. If you don't know what it is, crawl out from under that rock you've been living under and go to Apple TV. All right. Right on into the news here. This is kind of cool. So WorkDrive has added the ability to comment directly on PDFs and image files using annotations. I like it. It's cool. They've actually got there's a page that will take you through this as well. So if you click out of this, they've actually got a full help tutorial you can look at. But basically, you can not just highlight text like you're kind of used to, but you can actually, grab and highlight, little icons or anything on the
Yeah.
page and make a direct comment on it. You can do exactly the same thing with images. So, you're looking at, maybe you've got someone's put something together on a JPEG and it's a layout that you're going to put up on your web page, or maybe it's going to be a thumbnail. You can just highlight it and say, move this here, do this, that kind of stuff. Really slick. We always talk about how
Nice.
I always talk about how that WorkDrive team is constantly improving. It's cool stuff.
Yeah. I mean, these are super useful when you get into like designing any of this particular content, and traditionally, right, commenting on documents is kind of restricted for the, docx or writer docs. So being able to just grab an area, grab a section of text and leave a comment is super useful, I'd imagine, especially for those kind of content teams that are building these things out.
Yeah, it really is. So it's again, great stuff from this team. I love what they're doing. It seems like every week, and it's not just minor stuff. It's just really kind of cool stuff that they're coming up with. So
Absolutely.
um, good for them. All right, moving on. Um, you can now add comments. Whoops, is that what we just did?
No,
No.
this is a little different. So this one is actually adding comments in WorkDrive to an entire file. So now you could
Well, this
actually
is the
just
same.
run a chain of comments kind of at a top level, not on anything particular in the file, but on the
No, no,
file.
no. No, 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 I messed up. This is actually the document I was referring to that refers to the document that we did before. So
And this is a
this is
separate
how
update
this
they've
is
added here at the top.
yeah, this
Yeah.
this is how you do it, right? You click in and add a comment, and you can kind of go in here and do it. It kind of gives you an example. Like, it's got this photo right here where you're highlighting this iPad and saying, change the tablet theme. All right.
Mhm.
Something like that. So yeah,
Very
cool.
nice.
You should think I should know this, since I just built this deck out about 30 minutes before we got started here, but there we go. So, all
You're a
right, with
gold kit.
that, yeah, this is a big one, Tyler. I don't know if you saw this or not. This dropped
I
10
did. I
hours
did
ago.
see
You
this
can
one sneak in. Yeah. So this is a long-standing one that can become a real thorn in people's sides. So inside the CRM, if you have a kind of parent record, maybe an account or a deal, you might create a subform on that record, which basically will function like a little table where you can add additional rows and kind of track a separate data set inside of something like a deal. The only downside with these has always been that you can't import into them. So if you were doing this a different way before, and then you want to start using the subforms to track it, then really you could only track it on a go forward basis, or you could add them all in manually or via like custom code and custom functions. Basically, what they've done here is added the ability to import directly into those subforms. So if you're doing like a migration or kind of a reformat of your system, this is going to be just a huge time saver for getting all of that data where it needs to go.
Yeah, this is huge. That's it. And it still have a 100 row limit though, right? Or
I
is it
think
200
so. Yeah,
rows
100 rows on a record.
for a subform? Cool.
Hmm.
Anyway, good stuff. Subforms getting more and more useful 4 years after they were launched. It's just all the little kind of things, they
Yep.
roll them out and then kind of figuring out what to do with them. I think we've got pretty much everything we've ever asked for. You can put them in emails now. There's,
Hmm.
it's all there. So good, good, good stuff. And moving along with the news, this one, Tyler, I've read it and read it. You're going to have to tell me on this. So I'll
So
give
this was
I'll give the
confusing for me
highlights here.
too. Yeah, this was confusing for me too. So essentially, like when you are working in the CRM, when you run an automated action, it's going to consume an API credit. And when you're writing in Deluge, they have some kind of pre-built functions called integration tasks that essentially are just like wrappers on an API call. So it just makes it faster and easier to create a record in CRM or update a record in books. And essentially, they a while back had announced that those integration tasks were going to start counting against your limits on API calls. Now, to be totally honest with you, I thought this was already in place. So they're saying here that we're going to start doing that, but my understanding is that this was already in place. What they're saying in this document is that while the API dashboard showed it, it didn't actually count behind the scenes. And now I guess it is going to actually start counting towards those API credits. To be honest, this is very unlikely to affect anybody. Based on their numbers, they're saying 99% of organizations are not going to cross any limits once they start counting against API credits. It honestly makes sense that they would count as one because they are just making an API call. So I think that for most people, this is going to have no effect. For developers who might be building crazy things, you probably just need to be aware that these are officially going to start counting into those credit limits as of now.
So, question I have on this though, it's a significant bump. So, on enterprise, you're going from 15,000 plus an extra thousand for every license you have to 50,000. And we've
Mhm.
had a few enterprise clients. We've had a lot of enterprise clients that run up against this, and it becomes a problem. Where you're always constantly bumping. Is this going to significantly aid that, or are the additional 35,000 credits you're getting going to be used up by these integration tasks?
Yeah, it's a good question. They're definitely increasing the limit because the integration tasks are going to start counting. To be honest, though, I mean, most of the time, if you're working in the CRM and you're writing functions that interact with the CRM, you're going to use those integration tasks anyways. It's kind of a best practice to do it because when Zoho changes things on the back end, they'll automatically update those integration tasks. So, an example would be this was a while back now, but when they deprecated auth tokens for API calls and moved everything to OAuth, if you were using these integration actions, you didn't have to do anything to your code. They just switched it on the back end. So most people are probably using these right now anyways. That's why they're bumping the limit up, is just to make sure that now that they're going to start counting, they're really not trying to like catch anyone, right? And start charging you unnecessarily. So they're probably bumping them for that reason. As it
Well, they
stands with
kind of point.
daily limits, most people don't run into daily limits. Most of the times when you have an API crunch, it's on a per minute limit. So you've got a bunch of scheduled functions running, you've got a third party integration running, and you're bumping into that 100 per minute. But otherwise, I don't think that for the vast majority of organizations, this shouldn't cause any headaches.
Nice. And they are going to take care of everybody. They point out at the end of the article that they run the stats, and 99% of the organizations, this will have zero effect on them whatsoever. And for
Yep.
the 1%, they're going to give them a kind of a grace limit, and they're going to let them cross it, I guess, right? They're going to
Mhm.
temporary, and then they're going to let them time to analyze and purchase more credits if required. And they'll be sending follow-up emails to those organizations as well. It looks like they're not going to, it's not going to just hurt anybody immediately, at least. So, and hopefully it's good. So, anyway, it's got to be some reason for them to do it. All right, and moving on, Zoho Meeting now has some. You can share some small updates actually across the board for Zoho Meeting here. You can share PDF files. You can create departments. You have secure join links. You can change role as co-organizer while you're in a meeting. They say they've enhanced the webinar video, and they've done some bandwidth optimization for better webinars. We ran some tests internally, and it seems to be the same. So as soon as every time we get these kind of announcements, we run these
We
tests.
always get
It seems
excited.
to be the same. We do. Anyway, a little faster loading. I've got filters for virtual backgrounds now, auto mute on entry, some changes to iOS apps, some bug fixes, those kind of things as well. So good stuff. Things that pretty much every other, meeting software kind of has. They're just been kind of tweaking it and getting along. Honestly, I think GoToMeeting's gotten much, much, much better. I like it a lot. If they could get that recording quality and the bandwidth
Mhm.
issue solved, so you don't have the audio dropouts and the video dropouts and then the syncing issues on recording and all kinds of that stuff. I mean, that's kind of the deal. The meeting itself, they seem to
It's
go
solid.
fine.
Yeah, it's solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just those
Yeah.
little things, voice and audio quality are the big ones, I think, and especially voice, honestly. The last time I was on a Zoho meeting, you just hear it, and especially because I'm used to hearing you talk through a mic for, every single
Right.
day. So when it sounds different, it's easy to tell. And yeah, it's just got those little rough edges. But the thing is, I mean, if you're on Zoho 1 and maybe virtual meetings are not like the main thing that you're doing for, your whole workflow every single day, this app is going to completely have you covered. It's only really people like us that live in these meetings that are going to need all the little bells and whistles and kind of the bandwidth that comes with a product like Zoom.
Yeah, and it's, they give this app away in almost every single bundle. And if
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
expensive.
You
But
probably
what
have
they're not
Zoho
doing,
Meeting if you have the Zoho app.
yeah, and I mean the reason they can do that is does run on their data centers. I mean, eh, Zoom did not go out and build data centers. I don't know who they're using, but they're using either AWS or they're using Azure or
Sure,
they're
yeah.
using Google, right?
Yeah.
Or many of them, right? Um, who knows? Maybe they're across a bunch, but in this case, it's one of those things where Zoho puts it there, so it's just a giveaway, and it's a great application for the most part. And they've started rebuilding their data centers now. The COVID's over, so they've got plans to roll out, I think, like a dozen this year. So that will be a
Very
good thing.
nice.
Maybe that'll help. All right, and then along the same lines, Zoho Backstage, in recognizing everything we just talked about, now allows you. They did allow you to use Zoom webinars to embed
Yeah.
in Backstage, but now you can just use regular Zoom meetings. So it's big. It's big.
Yeah,
So if
that's
you're
awesome.
hosting a virtual, yeah, because webinars are expensive in Zoom.
You do not want to pay for Zoom
Super.
webinar. It is not cheap. It is not
No,
cheap.
it's super expensive. So now that you can use Zoom Meeting and you can basically manage it all through Zoho Backstage, you kind of get the best of both worlds. And if you have Zoho One, you've got Backstage, and we talk about Backstage. It's a great event. It allows you to do virtual events, hybrid events, in-person events, overall management of your attendees, all those kind of things. And now, instead of having to use basically Zoho Meeting to do it, you can use Zoom meetings, and that's a great thing, I think. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Shout out to the Backstage team. All right, and then moving along with the news, this is just a dinky little one in Zoho projects. You now have the ability to kind of fine tune the permission sets around comments.
Why not?
Basically, it. Why not?
Why not?
So you can do that.
One.
That's good. And then we always like to point out that the Zoho People newsletter has dropped. And so you can get the March Zoho People newsletter. And if you are a Zoho People person, this is where you want to go to get the latest updates and news and find out everything that's going on in Zoho People. They also are doing a webinar. I don't know if we've added this to our events page yet. Strategic Approaches to Employee Experience and Engagement. That's going to be on March 30th. So you might want to check that out. Anyway, always a good newsletter. This is kind of where you keep up with everything that's going on in the world of Zoho People. So there you go. And with that, Tyler, let's get to, oh no, we still have more news. Two pieces of more news. This one's interesting. But wait, there's more. I kind of threw this in because we've covered this in the past. I've got all these Google crawlers that go out and search for single thing that's going on in the world of Zoho. And this was a nice little story, basically about a gentleman who works for Zoho and has, risen to, head a team of 120 people over at Manage Engine, which is a division of Zoho. And he basically did it by, skipping school and, basically going to Zoho schools and getting completely trained there. And it's a really cool little thing that they do over at Zoho, but they have this entire, Zoho schools of learning. And you don't necessarily have to go to work for Zoho afterwards, but it's a whole tech background. We've talked about it in the past. And you say, gosh, does it work? Well, evidently it very much does work. So cool little program they've got going on there. I know they've even talked about like launching something like this in Texas as well. For people over here, I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah, it is really cool. They kind of invest right in the future skill sets that they're going to need. So kind of getting ahead of it in a lot of different ways. I mean, tech, design, business, advanced study, which I guess is a little bit vague, and then graduate studies as well. So lots of different ways to kind of jump in and start learning.
Good stuff. All right, Tyler. And with that, let's go to our implementation of the week. It's the implementation of the week.
Alrighty, so this one here is kind of around Zoho Analytics as well as Zoho CRM. So of course we talk it to death, but Zoho CRM, of course, is a great tool for tracking sales, customer engagement, even operations processes. Like what needs to happen after a sale has been made. And one of the beauties of Zoho's CRM is that you can customize and automate, most things in there. So if you have a kind of long process defined from sales, the engagement around that, and then what all needs to happen afterwards, using the ability to customize and automate the CRM, you can essentially write, date stamps and statuses to track each of those individual different steps and processes and stakeholders that go into this kind of overall process that you're following. And so you can do all that in the CRM, but the downside is that within the CRM, you're just going to be a little bit limited on reporting. So if you wanted some type of report that said, give me the number of days between starting and finishing for all these different various types of work items and kind of composite them up into these other sections, or give me the average for the whole process, you're just going to find that you're limited with what you can report on with the native CRM dashboards and reports. But by using Zoho Analytics, you can basically sync all of this data. So, date entered process A, date completed process A, the same for process B and C and D, and pull all of that over into Zoho Analytics and start to get some really interesting calculations around, how many pending items do we have in any of these other little buckets, as well as, how many work hours do we have in each of those buckets. If we know that completing step 1 takes about 20 minutes of work, right, and we have 100 items that are in step 1, we can actually calculate, how many work hours we have pending. This data can then kind of be used to make hiring decisions or workflow decisions around understanding, hey, we've got a big backlog that seems to sit in step 2 a lot of the time. Do we need to optimize that process? Do we need to increase our staffing? How do we need to resolve this? Because clearly, based on this type of data, certain steps might be where you're having those issues. So really, it's mostly an implementation around Zoho Analytics. For this customer in particular that we built this for, they have a very long process. These are not sales that are kind of just like in and out the door. There's a lot of different fulfillment, configuration, compliance steps that kind of need to go into it. And so by doing this, you can basically set yourself up to start understanding where those issue points in the process are and make some informed decisions about, workflow management as well as hiring and staffing.
We do a lot of interesting things with analytics. It's
That
one of
we
those
do.
hidden tools. You can do so much with it. I mean, pushing data back to the CRM, pulling it. I mean, there's just so much. It's such a powerful tool that really a lot of people don't know about. Or I
Or
think
don't
it's
dive
one of those
into
things where,
quite enough.
well, and it's one of the few Zoho apps where I would say with most Zoho applications, you can get in there and you can figure it out pretty quick. You're like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, this is simple. I can drag this stuff around. With analytics, you kind of got to know what you're doing. And it takes a
Mhm.
little while to, I think, get to be proficient at it. You can get there eventually. It's like anything. It's just how long it's going to take you to do it or put something together or figure it out and all the trial and error that's going to be involved in it. But
Yep.
and that's why you need us. That's why you need Tyler. And so it works out well. So nice implementation.
Yeah, it
And
was a
with
fun one
that,
to work on.
let's move. Nice. Let's move on to this week's read. All right. We have ignored HubSpot for a while and their blog, but they just released the 2022 Web Traffic Analytics report. And basically, this is one of their detailed 12-minute reads going through basically everything you may want to know about websites, what's happening, where the traffic comes from, uh, what visitors do when they're on your websites, on the average website, right? So it's if you're kind of saying, gosh, what's basic for a website? What should I be expecting? What can I do to improve it? This is kind of what you want to look at to go through and look at that. And there's some really interesting data in here, about mobile optimization and bounce rate, all of the stuff we deal with on a daily basis. But they give good explanations of what all of the terms need and what you mean and what you may want to do to improve your website and dive into your overall metrics, key ranking, SEO, everything across the board. Nice write-up. They always do good stuff over at HubSpot. They don't really go halfway when they write these kind of things up. So good job to the team over there. Who wrote this article? This was written by Maxwell Iskiev. So nice job there, Maxwell.
And I like this article because it highlights some stats that you might not be tracking right now. Some of these you're going to read and you're going to go, yeah, lots of the traffic comes from mobile devices. I know that. Right. But they do have a couple additional kind of metrics and baselines that they've defined here that can help you maybe go, I haven't thought about tracking that before. So if you're kind of in this space, definitely worth taking a look at this article, just even if at a high level, to see if there are any of these certain metrics or kind of tactics that are in here that you just haven't bounced off before.
Good stuff. All right. And then let's look at what's new on Zenatta.com. All right, we have a new case study from Intrinsic Therapeutics. Shout out to those guys over there. Shout out to Ralph. Really good stuff here. So this one we're still ongoing. We're doing so much for them. They're a medical device manufacturer, and we really helped transform their overall business using Zoho and getting some stuff up. And so take a look at this. It's been a fun account.
Built
fun
a
account to work
full
with.
kind of redo of CRM and migration from Monday, which was just a little too limited for their team. And kind of on the other side, a full build out of a custom creator app that basically stores certain data that needs to be worked with, reviewed, inputted, and validated. That previously was running on, I think it was an old PHP database, some pretty old kind of outdated tool. The team was able to kind of get all that data organized, figure out how the team was interacting with it, and bring it over to Zoho to kind of tie it into the CRM using Zoho Creator for the workflow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I forget about that. There's so many clients where they come to us and they had some custom PHP app written in the early 2000s or something, and it's kind of reached a breaking point, and things need to change there. So anyway, great people to work with, and thank you so much for the kind words and the case study. And Tyler, we don't want to force people into, consuming content one way. Some people like to watch videos. Some people like to read. So we accommodate everything as it relates to that. So we did our webinar, Zoho Desk, full product overview. And if I was someone, I'd rather read, because most of this video is just you on the screen. So that would just drive me nuts. So
that's rough. Yeah, we wouldn't want to subject anybody to that.
So Wayne has gone through and basically did a complete write-up of everything that we talked about, or you talked about, I should say, and kind of put it in here, given the highlights and those kind of things as well. And you can also just jump right through to each one of the sections and look at what's going on there. So if you haven't watched our webinar, all kidding aside, this is a good one. They had a complete overhaul of the interface between 2021 and 2022, a few small changes. I think we also point out a lot of interesting tips and tricks, things that kind of trip people up, when they're building out Zoho Desk. And I think it is worth your time to look at that as well. All right. And with that, let's get to our pick of the week. All right. As it relates to our Zoho Desk webinar, at the very, very end of our Zoho Desk webinar, we were talking about integrations, and we talk about the fact that in Zoho Desk proper, you've got some integrations that you can set up for basically for 6 different Zoho applications. But then over in the Zoho Marketplace, there are 6 other integrations to applications, and then there are 6 other really interesting, what would you call them, features for Zoho Desk that aren't in Zoho Desk that you can add in by adding these plugins in, and that feature now becomes a part of Zoho Desk. And Tyler, this one, related tickets by custom fields in Zoho Desk, is one we've talked about. So basically, if you add a custom field in the layout departments, you can relate tickets and ticket ID, and it's very, very helpful if you've got a kind of a built out help desk, and you really want to kind of hone down on your tickets and be able to look at them in a different relationships between the two. It's a nice little add-on, something I think should be a part of Zoho Desk proper. But here you go.
Yeah, I would see a big one here for if you had a form on your website, maybe for like, I don't know, RMA requests or support requests on a certain product, and you had a field on that form for serial number, right? If you go ahead and relate all tickets that have ever been related to that particular serial number, because you've got it matching in these fields across different tickets, right? Now, when a new ticket comes in, you can see all the different ones that were related to that particular product that customer has. So definitely a lot of use cases there, basically just to see more than one ticket at once based on some type of match across different custom fields.
Yep. Super, super nice. And if you're looking at the example, if you're watching us on YouTube, they've chose, hey, Chennai, 10 tickets, French, 5 tickets, C1 contact, 12 tickets. And now you've got the 5 tickets, when you look down at the end, it's kind of filtering them on down as you keep adding various fields that you're filtering on. So nice stuff. Good job. And really, really, really nice one for kind of keeping things organized and viewing what's going on with your overall tickets and desk. So we wanted to point that out. And now let's get to our tip of the week. Tip of the week. All right, Drew is up against some stiff competition, Tyler, because now Wayne has stepped up and is doing his own tutorial series. This is how to set up UTM tracking for Zoho forms. He's even copied Drew's backward baseball cap. There's just so much
I love that. I hope he did that on purpose. I hope that was on purpose.
Anyway, this is actually a pretty powerful tip. We use this all the time, basically. So if you want to know, basically how to track, somebody's filling out a form, where did it come from? Basically this tells you how to set up that, the universal tracking metric. So you can go ahead and do that. And is worth taking a look at. So nice tip.
Yeah,
I like it.
Highlight here as well that this works extremely well in Zoho forms. This is a great way to capture UTMs. There's a lot of different ways to do it in Zoho. You'll look in CRM and you'll see they've got a Google Ads plugin, and you'll look, across everywhere, you'll see 10 different ways to do it. This is a super clean way where you're always going to grab those UTMs and pass them through with your form.
Yeah. And so I guess, the use case on this is maybe you're running a Google ad, or you've got, any ad out there, and someone's coming in from a link to a form to fill it out. You want to know, gosh, how did they get to us? And this is going to pass that basically lead source back to the Zoho form. So
exactly,
in a very, very elegant way. So worth easy to set up. This is what he's got, a 6-minute video here. So if you've been wondering how to do this, take a look at it. This is valuable stuff. So we hope you find that useful. And I love it that, we are not having to do these every week or every month and do a bunch of them. I've kind of been on the sidelines now for like
this week's a short one for me, so I didn't have time to slip one of these in. So thank you, Wayne, for building this video. I think it'll be a useful one for the viewers too.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. All right. And with that, let's get to some questions. All right, Tyler. Manuel Romero says, after watching our episode 189, March Finance Madness, great video. I love your sense of humor. We don't have any humor, man. This is just us. I mean,
which one do you think he was talking to? Am I funny or are you funny? Which one of us is funny? I'll have to follow up, Manuel, and let us know which one of us.
I want yeah, leave a comment there for us. He has a question. Could you point me in the right direction regarding fetching data from analytics into a CRM record? I don't know where to start.
So it depends. It depends on how you need to do it. So the short answer is it's going to be done with a piece of deluge code. So it wouldn't be done with any like pre-built configuration that comes out of the box. Depending on what you need to do, you could set it up as like a workflow. Once the deal stage goes to proposal sent, then go and look into analytics, find some type of match in a table and bring some data back. You could also implement it as like a custom button on a record. If you had a quote, right, some type of quote module, and you wanted to do a like pull custom pricing button, right, that then goes and looks into analytics based on the products. Lastly, a lot of the times when we're doing stuff like this, we're doing it on a scheduled function. So maybe you've got some, big scary ERP system and you just want this little sliver of data to live inside the CRM. You can set up a connector, pull your data into analytics from that third-party system, and then run a little scheduled function out of the CRM that goes and gets that data. But so the short answer is it does need to be done with a custom code. You won't find any, UI configuration steps to roll this out.
So could we put a snippet over in Club Zenatta that kind of shows people, it's got to be changed, of course, that gives them a little bit of an idea of what they need to do to make this happen? Or would it be too complicated?
It's always so different because it really you need to build a query table first. You kind of have to know SQL. A lot of times it's the best way to get the data out. So it's a few steps. We could put a generalized guide on like what analytics endpoint you're using to download data, but there's also more than one way to do it, depending on how much data you need to bring in, and there's a lot of if statements, right, as you're building one of these guys out.
Well, it'd be nice if we could just put kind of maybe just a little basic thing over there, and like you say, everything's going to be so different across the board, but maybe point someone in the right direction. That way, if you want to slog around, Manuel, then you can, and hopefully figure it out. All right. And with that, let's move right along here. We have a question from, this is funny, Tyler, from Ben Van D. He thanks us for the videos. He's learned a lot from. He was watching our 2021 Zoho Recruit creating forms and assessments. I want to make my current database of candidates fill in 1 or 2 extra assessments after they've already applied. We actually had this exact discussion this week with another client. In the assessments module, I create those assessments, and now I want to email the candidates those assessments to Zoho Recruit. As I found out on the help page of Zoho, I need to create email templates and add the assessment forms there with merge fields, but I don't get that to work. Can you help me out with this? We can, and I think our recommendation, Tyler, is that you don't do it that way, but you actually do it through Zoho Forms, yes?
Yep. Yeah, we'll only ever use assessments in Recruit when they're first applying. And the way that we'll do something like this is we'll set up a Zoho form that captures all the necessary data that you want to ask in that assessment. Then out of Recruit, you can trigger an email that goes out to that client with a link to the form. The trick is you would put in the email parameters or the link parameters the same way that you're probably looking to do it with the assessment, right? Where you kind of drop them into the URL. What you can do is pass the candidate ID into a custom field inside of the Zoho form. Then you can mark that field hidden so that each candidate is essentially receiving a unique link to the form that's pre-filled with a little number that you can then use once the form is submitted to tie all of that data back to your candidate. A little bit of a workaround, but we also never have been able to get an assessment to go out to a candidate after they are submitted. I think I know what you're talking about. There is a help guide that references being able to do that, but it does not seem to work. If you do ever get it to work, though, Ben, please reach out. Let us know. But on our side, we've never been able to get that thing to actually go out in a proper way where someone can fill it out. The only way that it really seems to work is as like a screening assessment on their way in on the application. So everything following that, we'll just do with Zoho Forms.
Yeah. And it is something the recruit teams listening, they kind of need to address because this does come up. It's kind of one of those things.
There's functionality in the assessments that isn't natively in Zoho Forms, like question weighting and some of those aggregate scoring tools. Now, you can do all that with custom code. We've done it before, right? Where the form comes in and we've got a piece of code that weights all the different values and responses and rolls up a custom scoring field. But it sure would be nice just to use the default assessments in this use case. Unfortunately, it just doesn't seem to pan out that way.
Yep. All right. And then moving on here, after watching our 2021 Zoho Recruit full product tutorial again, Matri Meta asks, I want to send letter of intent. I have created mail merge template for the same, but how do I attach the mail merge template with the email along with the email message? This is inside Recruit.
Yes, you would go through, you would do your mail merge. That's going to kind of boot you over to Zoho Writer. From there, you would need to either distribute it for signature via Zoho Sign. That can be done directly through the kind of mail merge process. If this isn't something that needs to be signed, like I don't think LOI, I guess, might not need to sign that. You could just go ahead and download it as a PDF after you've generated it in Writer, and then send it out via a Recruit email template, just kind of adding it as an attachment.
Yeah, and other than the whole manual steps here, if you wanted to automate this, you could do it with Deluge, right?
You could surely make a magic button that says send LOI, right? And you just press it and it sends it based on the data in the record. But if you are doing it manually, you'll just need to download it as a PDF after it's been merged.
But you could just make this button, you click the button, it merges it, creates a PDF, attaches it to the email, sends it.
Emails it to them, attaches it to the record, emails it to you, wherever you want it to go, it can go.
Yeah. But that is going to require some custom code there, Matri. All right. And that wraps it up. Last week was an hour. We're doing this one in 42 minutes. That's good timing. All right. Hey, we want to thank everybody so much for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments, head over to club.zenatta.com. You can leave them there. And if you just want to know more about Zoho and us, just head over to zenatta.com.
On the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to all the stories we discussed today. We'd love if you would follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us here on YouTube, as well as on your choice of podcast service. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next Friday.
Rock and roll. Play you out with some smooth jazz.
Time to go catch a flight.
All right. Hey, I will see you in 12 hours, buddy.
Better have a bottle of wine decanting. Let me put it that way. It's gonna be a long day.
I will. I sent you a wine list.
I got to review that. All righty. Thanks for watching, everybody.